to order. Thank you to those in the audience who are joining us. We're delighted to have those who may be watching on Zoom. I'm going to ask the clerk to open the roll.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we have a few housekeeping items, colleagues. I would like a motion to re-refer Senate Bill 1297, Senator DeSeff's bill to Education and Health. Second. Clerk, please open the roll.
Ayes 8, no 0.
Thank you. I also would like a motion to strike Senate Bill 1387, Senator Norman's bill, and this is at the patron's request.
Second.
Will the clerk please open the roll?
Ayes 9, no 0.
Thank you. Okay, the first cluster of bills we are going to take up will be bills coming out of the Cannabis Subcommittee. So I'm going to turn to the Cannabis Subcommittee Chair. Sure. Okay, we're going to proceed with other bills. Apparently, we're waiting for some administrative support here.
Okay, the plan hasn't changed since we met, Mr. David.
No, you're a separate bill. You have a separate bill. Lewis has a separate bill. That has not changed. Okay, why don't we hear for some patrons? Sure. Senator Eben, would you like to? Oh, are you doing a cannabis bill?
Yes, the subcommittee heard the bill, and based on their input, we have some amendments to it that I could explain, Madam Chair.
Okay, colleagues, are you ready to take Senator Eben's bill, or should I move on?
I can hold on.
We're still waiting for administrative support.
Okay.
Okay. Who else might be here?
What's that?
Okay.
Stay here for one bill. Yeah.
Senator Morrissey here, Senator Mason here. Wow. I guess I can do my bill. Okay. Senator Sproul, would you like to?
Yes, ma'am. They're right here.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to present Senate Bill 846.
Senate Bill 846.
Okay, this is a bill that will allow those who have been one time incarcerated for crimes related to primarily larceny or drug possession, after they've completed their time and they've gone through a training to be a peer specialist, they would then be eligible to be hired in adult treatment centers as peer recovery specialists. We've worked very hard on this bill, and we think that this does a couple things. It actually will expand the number of people who would be eligible in an area where we are suffering severe shortages. And then there's been documentation that those who have once suffered from addiction and addiction-related criminal behavior understand exactly what other individuals are going through, and they make major contributions to the profession. I'd like to ask the committee to adopt an amendment in the nature of a substitute.
So moved.
It's been properly moved and second. We adopt amendment, and this substitute. All in favor, use the sign saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? I would be happy to take them at this time.
Question from the committee?
I may
Yes,
have
Chairman.
some.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
we had talked about this several times, and there were some issues on the barrier crimes, and I'm past that part of it. And I think it's a great bill because it's hard to have mentors who haven't walked in their shoes. My question is, once they become peer specialists, do they run another background check, understanding what's in their history, but just to make sure they didn't catch a charge somewhere else, or how does that work to make sure that they're staying straight to do what they're doing?
Well, there has to be a background check, of course, when they get hired, and then the removal of a barrier crime would be available to prospective employers. I don't know if there's a law that would require a background check once they've been hired and have been on the job for a while, which is your question,
Right. How do we make sure that
that they don't start reusing. Is that
Correct.
your, I will have to defer to counsel on that. There's nothing in this bill that would require that, if that is your question.
Counsel?
Mr. Chair, Senator Reeves, I'm not positive whether they do the rat back or not. Is someone here from the department's page here?
No problems. Come forward, please. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Stacy Pendleton, Human Resources at the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. There's nothing in the code that requires a regular check. However, if you are moving to a different position, promoted, the check is there. And the policies at the providers would require disclosure if there is, if you're arrested or have a conviction, then you would have to disclose that as part of the policy.
Mr. Chair?
And employers could also ask, they could voluntarily ask for a second background, second background check.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, so there's nothing mandating it, but it's all based on voluntary disclosure?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other question from the members of the committee?
I do have a speaker,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chairman.
All right. Please come forward. Those in support, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jennifer Fedora with the Virginia Network of Private Providers and also representing Connections Health Solutions.
We have quite a few speakers, so 2 minutes if you don't mind, please.
It's going to be shorter than that, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
We
Thank you so
both
much.
strongly support this bill. Peer recovery specialists are vital to your new initiatives for crisis programs, and we strongly support this bill.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Jennifer Faison. I'm here representing the Virginia Association of Community Services Boards, and we encourage you to vote for this bill. It's a good step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Alexander McCauley for the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Virginia, and we support the bill.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good morning. My name is Martin Mash with Vocal Virginia, the only peer-led mental health advocacy and education network in Virginia. We have 2,000 members, and we support this bill.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Next, please.
Morning, Mr. Speaker. Carlos Hopkins with Gentry Locke on behalf of the Reform Alliance, and we support the bill.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the Zoom in support of the bill?
We have several speakers on Zoom, Mr. Chair.
I want those who are in support, please. Get them a minute apiece, please.
Bonnie Neighbor, you may provide your testimony.
I'm Bonnie Neighbor with the Disability Law Center of Virginia. We support this bill.
Thank you, ma'am. Next,
Richard
please.
Walker, you may provide your testimony.
Richard Walker, Bridging the Gap in Virginia, former incarcerated convicted felon, qualified mental health professional. I wholeheartedly support this bill because individuals are able to relate to those that have substance use disorders and be able to move forward to help them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next,
Mark
please.
McCoy, you may provide your testimony. Mark McCoy, you may provide your testimony.
Next, please.
Mark McCoy, you may provide your testimony.
That's the third time. Next, please.
There are no more speakers, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you so much. Now, those who are in opposition, will you please come forward? So anyone in opposition, please come forward. Anyone in Zoom in opposition?
Anyone in Zoom who is in opposition to the bill, you may raise your hand. We have one speaker, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, please. 1 minute, please.
Frank Mosley, you may provide your testimony. Frank Mosley, you may provide your testimony.
That's 2 times. 1 more time, please.
Frank Mosley, you may provide your testimony.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
thank you. Good morning.
Hold
I appreciate this opportunity to speak. What I would like to say is that this is an opportunity for us to get something right here in Virginia. We have had the historic, uh, we have had historic things happen here in Virginia, and to amend something is to make things better. Our goal is to try to improve the quality of life of these citizens and the individuals that have been adversely impacted by prohibition on marijuana. This is an opportunity for Virginia to get it right, and I urge you all to try and look at the possibility of a historical reparative act that we can take. I dare not call this reparations, but it could be a reparative act that rules are really
You're breaking up, sir.
we need to have comprehensive legislation that supports the individuals and community of color who need the opportunity to learn and grow, who need the opportunity to have resources in their hands in order to be able to become business owners, to turn the narrative around. We can do this here in Virginia. We can make a change that will impact individuals in a way that will uplift them. And that is what this bill should be about.
Yes, sir.
So I oppose this bill because I think that it lacks the things that we need as a community, as an impacted segment of this population,
Yes, sir.
to really have
Sir,
the
if you
opportunity
can wrap it
to
up, I
restore.
appreciate it. Are you finished, please? You can wrap it up?
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
question by members of the committee, Senator Cosgrove?
Second.
It's been properly moved and second we report the bill. Please open the board up, please. Give me a chance to say that. And we refer to John Cosgrove, favorite committee, refer to finance. Please open the roll.
Ayes 13, noes 1.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Mason, I'm going to take you, and then I'll go to the subcommittee.
Move the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 983. So, over the years, we've had a farm winery license, and along with it come a number of privileges. And so what we're trying to do here, you see, that although it looks like an enormous bill, Mr. May has done a lot of his work cleaning up the code in a lot of places. But I will take you to the bulk of the bill, which establishes for license. That is on line 455. And it has a Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, and a Class 4 license. And I beg your pardon, Madam Chairman, of course, in the keeping of the general laws tradition here in rehab, I have a substitute.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 My apologies, Madam Chair.
No.
So again, this establishes 4 different licenses. When this was initially discussed by the Virginia Winery Association, it passed 98-3, and there were 3 opponents. But throughout the course of this discussion, we worked with those 3, and we believe those 3 have now sent us letters saying they're on board. So Class 1 is a small that you can produce and grow and make up to 250 cases a year. Class 2 allows you to grow the grapes into 51%, but you can make it elsewhere. Class 3, you can grow and make on site up to 500 cases, and Class 4 are the larger wineries. And one note that no Class 4 farm winery license should be issued to any person that's not operated under a license for the past 7 years. So it'll grandfather in people that are there and are large farm wineries. But if you want to become a Class 4, you got to prove it over a period of time. There's also a clause at the end that allows some time, 5 years to comply, if there are people that need to come up to speed or want to have a particular class. And so that's, I'm happy to answer any specific questions, but that's kind of the larger overall 814 AM framework of the farm winery license.
Senator DeStef.
Madam Chair, Senator Mason, I'd love to support your bill, but
That'd be great.
I still can't see it.
Oh, okay.
So,
The amendment is online.
Yeah, sorry about that.
all right, let me try it again.
Madam Chair, I was having a hard time getting mine to populate a moment ago as well.
It is online now. I pulled it up.
All right, now I just had to come out
So,
completely. Now,
Madam Chair, Senator DeStef, if you want to, when you get it, go to line 455. And those class 1, 2, 3, and 4 licenses, there's some cleanup and some other language, which I'm happy to review, but that's the bulk of what you're shooting for.
all right, Madam Chair.
Senator DeStef.
So I've got a quick question. Let's say I want to be a winery.
Yes, sir.
And I grow 3 grapevines, and then I buy a bunch of grapes.
Yep.
And import them, say, okay, so I've got, and I've not started on page, or line 455 yet, I'm still scrolling to get
That's
to
okay.
it. But let's say that I produce a gallon of my own grapes and juice.
Right.
And I import 100 gallons of other grapes and juice, and I want to call myself a winery.
Got it.
Am I a winery under this?
Madam Chair, Senator DeStef, you have hit the crux of the bill. And license number 1 on line 455 tells you what it's going to take for you to do that. All the fruits and agricultural products shall be grown and produced on the premises. You will have a plot of land no smaller than 1 1/2 acre, and you shall ferment on the licensed premises no less than what amounts to 250 cases of wine. So that's the way you are going to get to the level. And that's exactly, you've nailed it. That's exactly what we're trying to get to. People that said, well, I'm a farm winery, so I can do 5 sales in remote locations. I can buy them exempt from local zoning. No, we're trying to make sure that if in fact you're doing, to your question exactly, you've got to be at that level.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, Senator Mason.
Senator DeStef.
So what's the minimum amount I have to grow to be called a farm winery under the bill?
Yes, sir.
And again, I'm just getting to line 455.
Understood. My apologies for, I'm sorry, I'm being told that I know less about it than others in the room, and which is very true, Madam Chair. But Madam Chair, when you get line 456 to 461 nails your question to the point. But I'm happy to acknowledge my limited understanding of such matters.
Madam Chair.
I know some.
Okay, I think.
I can help you there, Ms.
We have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Servo.
Yes, ma'am.
So about 3 years ago, some folks came to me in my district because they had started what they called a micro winery, where they buy their grapes from somebody else, and entirely, 100%, and then they make wine in the back of their retail establishment.
Right.
And it's like in a strip mall. And I had to pass a law in 2020 to create a new license for them to be able to, I think it was sell wine by the glass. They were allowed to sell bottles and do tastings, but they couldn't sell wine by the glass. And so we added the language that's in your bill, lines 329 through 333, which I see you're modifying with this bill, which says that these folks would have to sell no less than 20% of the wine for on-premises consumption, whereas right now there's no limit. And I'm not clear if this only has to do with farm wineries, why we're adjusting that language. Because this wasn't a farm winery.
What line did you say?
329 through 333.
Less than 20%.
What line is he? 329?
Yeah, that's so less than 20%. Okay. Madam Chair, Mr. May, I believe, has helped us with a good deal of that. You want to speak to that, Mr. May?
Madam Chair, Senator Servo. Yeah, so the language that you're referencing there is for the bigger wineries. Right now, the language in current code allows them to sell wine at the winery for on-premises or off-premises consumption, provided that any wine that they don't make themselves is purchased from a wholesaler. This would say that, and all the wine that they sell has to be manufactured on the licensed premises. This would say that no less than 20% of the wine sold has to be manufactured on the licensed premises. And again, this is just for wineries. Is that correct?
Yeah. Senator Servo.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the explanation. This language was only added for my micro winery license. And so it's not clear to me why, if it was only added for the micro winery license, why we had to amend it for when we're only messing with farm wineries.
Madam Chair, Ann Lee Kerr on behalf of the Virginia Wineries Association. So, Senator, you were looking at just the definition of a winery license, not a micro winery license. What the change is on there is we're saying that you as a winery in Virginia have to, I'm sorry, I just lost my place because I cannot see without these glasses on. You have to make no less than 20% of the wine on premises. So it's just a requirement that you have to do at least that to have the winery license. You can't just not do it.
Okay, Madam Chairman,
Not
one
make
last
it.
question.
Senator Servo.
I get that. I don't think it'll affect my
Shouldn't.
constituent / the micro winery in my district. I'm just not clear why we have to amend that. This language was added only for my bill back in 2020. It's the only reason that sentence is there. And so if we're talking farm wineries, it's not clear to me why it has to be there. But I don't think it makes a difference. Having heard the explanation, I'm just not clear to me why we have to make the
Well, we
amendment.
represent, the Wineries Association represents farm wineries and what we refer to as commercial wineries, even though it's called wineries in the code. Our wineries wanted to have some production requirement. And we thought 20% was a fair enough number to have to be producing and to be a Virginia-based winery.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any speakers in the audience in favor? We just heard from Ms. Kerr. Anybody on Zoom in favor of this bill? Please keep your remarks to 30 seconds or less.
Anyone on Zoom who would like to speak on the bill, you may raise your hand electronically. We have no speakers, Madam Chair.
Anybody in the audience in opposition to the bill? And we have no speakers on Zoom.
Move to report and re-refer to finance.
This does not have to go to
All right.
finance according
Move
to
to
my
report.
notes. So, motion has been made to report, and there's a second. Will the clerk please open the roll?
Ayes 14, no 0, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you. I am going to turn to the subcommittee on cannabis, and Senator McPike will walk us through the three bills. And then I will take other patrons in the audience. Senator McPike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the subcommittee met. We took up three bills: Senate Bill 903, Senate Bill 1133, and Senate Bill 1393 from Senator Lewis. So as you can see from the report, both Senate Bill 903 from Senator Hanger as well as Senate Bill 1393 from Senator Lewis had some level of discussion around the regulation of hemp products, as you see by sort of a split vote on a number of different items, Madam Chair. And I know that there was some additional work and comments from the subcommittee that have been now worked into I guess a new substitute, as I understand it as well. And that's going to be under Senator Lewis's, is that correct? Or Senator Hanger's?
I think we're going to have separate bills. The
will-
amendments were offered into my bill as a substitute.
And there were amendments offered into Senator Lewis's bill. I believe the intent was to take your labeling language and to move it into Senator Lewis's bill.
Madam Chair?
That's correct.
Yes, Senator Spruill.
But I think also, Senator Hanger also made it clear that either put them together, but the way it came out of the committee, it was like they were taking his bill separate, and he was saying, what about me? So they were talking about either let them go out separately, either make it so they both can be satisfied, co-pitch on the bill. I believe that's what he was saying.
Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As this evolved after the committee, it was discovered that the bills actually were addressing separate subjects significantly, And the position that you were taking in committee would be supported in my bill, but his bill could be improved if it had some things that were also in my bill.
And that was sort of the conclusion of the quickly put together work group. Okay, so on 903, Senator Hanger's bill, is that where we are? Okay.
That's right. So Senate Bill 903, is there a substitute?
Because we had the transition
You want me to
language.
speak to it as he, I know that was,
Senate
yes.
Bill 903, go speak, yeah.
All right. So the substitute should be online now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate the time of the committee, particularly the subcommittee again, so I suspect you won't want to hear testimony much this morning, if at all.
No.
Because we spent about an hour on Senator Lewis' bill, mine, and appreciate the work of the subcommittee and then the work group after that was assembled. What Senate Bill 903 does, and it's in the aftermath of what we did last year, where we were attempting to get some of these problem products off the shelf, and we had given the responsibility to VDACs to do that. And they've been working at that, but two things: they don't have adequate manpower to actually do the job, and there's no registration process for these retailers to help them define the universe. So this bill does that. It has a registration process in it and just some definitions. The main issues that were in contention that were to be addressed, it was suggested that the subcommittee didn't like labeling hemp as marijuana, the definition when it reached a certain level. So we agreed to basically take that out. I didn't see a problem with that, but I think it made that's where the committee wanted to go, to take that definition out that called hemp marijuana if it was above a certain intoxicating level. So that is the one item. The other item that was agreed to in terms of modifying this was to move this ultimately through an enactment clause over to the CCA, so that the Cannabis Control Authority would have control of this after time. But within this legislation, VDACs would be authorized for the registration process to get the Delta-8, the synthetics, the type of product that we had a situation where there's a lady facing a murder charge because she let a child die from eating this candy type substance. So that's where it's at. It's a public safety issue, and I believe David may have not gotten all of that into the substitute overnight. I know you probably had to stay up all night. You got it?
You got it.
Okay, good.
Mr. May, do you have it in paper, or is it online yet, or are we adopting in concept?
Madam Chair, the substitute is posted online.
Thank you.
And
Okay, I would like a motion to adopt the substitute.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Madam Chair, if I could further explain, not to speak on Senator Lewis's behalf, but the distinct difference is the folks that he's representing, the people that want to do that. I personally don't like that, but some of you all do like that, is a market for inhalables that would be vaping products and smoking products that will get you high, that are intoxicating. And I certainly didn't want that in my bill, but if it's the pleasure of the committee to go that route, that will be up to the majority of us.
Of the committee, okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Senator Hanger? Senator Reeves.
Madam Chair, I'm on the sub, and I was a little confused at what point people get high. That percentage, those numbers they were talking about, that 0.3, 0.27. I don't know if there's somebody here from VDAC or somebody can please explain to me what that level of that point is at which you start getting high and it affects you.
Where's our scientist person from? Oh, Lynn. Okay, here you go. Thank you.
Yeah. Madam Chair, Linda Jackson, Department of Forensic Science. We did not bring our chief toxicologist, who would be the proper person to answer that question. But the levels that are in at least what I think are in this bill, because I haven't had a chance to look at it, at 2 milligrams per package, are generally below what would be considered a dose that somebody would take in order to achieve effects that would get you high. So I know that's not an exact answer, but it is trying to get at a level that's below what would be generally intoxicating per dose.
Okay. Any further questions? Senator Morrissey.
Quick question. I like your bill, but on that portion of it, that requires the manufacturer of an industrial hemp extract or a food that has an industrial hemp extract in it to obtain a permit from the Department of Agriculture. Was that not required before?
It is. It is.
It is now in your bill. I know that.
Right, right. And
Was it required before?
Yes.
Okay.
That is required as of now if they're handling these products.
Madam Chair, Senator Morrissey, I believe VDAX is here, but it's my understanding there's a registration requirement for the growers and the processors, but I don't know that there's a registration requirement for the retail establishment specifically.
Right. And we're adding the registration requirement for the retailers.
One quick question.
Senator Morrissey.
And I don't want to get bogged down on this, but the bill requires the manufacturer of an industrial hemp extract now to get a permit from the Commissioner of Agriculture. Senator McPike may have answered it. It appears that may have not been a requirement before.
Okay. I've got a VDAX person here that can speak to that with authority, I suppose.
Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Erin Williams with Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Senator Morrissey, currently manufacturers of industrial hemp extracts are required to get a permit from VDAX. It's a food safety permit. That requirement exists. The legislation proposes to require a retail facility registration. So that's an entity that's going to be selling the products.
Now I'm clear. Thank you very much.
You.
Very good. Senator DeStef.
Sorry. Madam Chair, Senator Hagner, and you may want to phone a friend on this one.
Okay.
You just said that 2 milligrams is not enough to get you high. Or not, I'm only on reading page 13 now, so of the substitute, so I just started reading the substitute, and it's 77 pages. But if you put 2 milligrams in a brownie that size, an inch, let's say a centimeter by a centimeter, then I say, hey, there's 2 milligrams in that. And that's one serving. Now, let's say I put 2 milligrams in each of these, but I like a bigger brownie because I tend to eat a little bit more than the average person, and I want one that's 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters. So now I am eating the equivalent of 30 milligrams. And it's, what I would consider a standard brownie. So am I going to get high on 15 servings of this little 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter? Because the concern I have is I can consolidate 2 milligrams into a very, very tiny, small piece, but I can also, for me, I'm going to eat 15 or 20 of them and not have a second thought about it. So that's my question.
Yeah, yes, and I can have someone from VDAC speak to that, or I can say it's more about there is potential for abuse, but we're not able really to shut down all the potential abuse like you're suggesting there. But the intent would be to focus on safety for the unaware consumer, perhaps. And that, I don't know if VDAC has a better answer, but yes, it can be abused by buying a whole lot of servings and opening them all up.
That would be very difficult to control for. I don't see how we do. Senator McPike.
Madam Chair, speaking to Senator DeStef's issue, I think one of the problematic things is setting caps to, I think, his point in the code. My preference would be to allow the CCA to develop regs around it because of packaging size, weight, and other things, and codifying this, I think, becomes a really problematic issue for us. And I think relying on the experts to do that and develop regs and goes through the process in the public more time than we have this morning to resolve, I think gives us a little bit more flexibility versus setting something hard and fast in the code. And that would be my recommendation if the committee so also agrees with it.
Is that a motion?
Mr. Chair,
make a motion.
could I speak to that
Yes.
before we go that direction?
Yes, Senator.
That was the reason, actually, this will be our fix for now. This is something that needs to happen now, not through a regulatory process a year from now. The question that was raised there is legitimate, but it's already being abused in a very unsafe way. If we put it and we control it now through a registration process at the 2 milligrams, we're improving. We're not totally controlling, but we're improving. Now, the proponents, like for Senator Lewis's bill, want that to be just kind of wide open so you can get high. And that's the distinction, and I'm not going to argue with whether we should allow legal products that get you high in these stores. But we really need to do this now, and that's something we hashed out yesterday. I thought that's why we're moving it to CCA. But we need something in place now, and this would be a great improvement to get those products that are already on the shelf that are getting people of all ages high, and sometimes inadvertently they don't realize what they're getting, and certainly their children don't realize what they're consuming, like candy.
Senator McPike.
So just as a follow-up, and I know Senator Reeves has a comment as well, but the considerable part of our hour in the subcommittee from different folks in industry and from all across Virginia, we're really concerned about the different issues associated with this that we could not resolve in subcommittee, and I don't know that we're going to resolve here this morning either.
We are not.
I'd rather provide the flexibility for the CCA to develop this regs. We already have the safety packaging that's already in our budget. We already have other protections that we've already passed that are already available for VDACs right now to enforce. And so I'm really cautious about setting something that we don't know all the unintended consequences, Madam Chair.
Well, we can entertain an amendment even if the patron views it as unfriendly. Let me just, and I will get back to that, Senator McPike. I have 2 other speakers in line.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Senator Reeves, Senator Servo, and Senator Sproul, in that order.
Madam Chair, thank you. And I know we heard testimony. Senator McPike and I and those on the sub heard a lot. I just am curious. I think CCA is here to hear their thoughts on where this is going and how they would approach that if they're here. Somebody from the Cannabis Control Authority?
Welcome, Mr. Priest.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, specifically, what would you like me to address, Senator Reeves?
Well, you've obviously been listening to testimony about at what point and how and packaging and where we are in the delineation between the hemp product and the weed product, right? The THC content level and those sort of things. So I'm curious to see how you guys are going to handle if we punt this thing over to you.
Well, and apologize for not introducing myself to those of you who don't know me. I'm Jeremy Priest, acting chair, acting head of the Cannabis Control Authority. First, I would associate myself with what my colleague from the Department of Forensic Sciences said earlier. You know, the science in the cannabis space is in flux and evolving, and the data regarding the point at which THC impairs an individual or becomes intoxicating that data is somewhat limited, but 2 milligrams is, I think, widely understood to be a non-intoxicating level. And so that level, if it's per package, one could consume a whole package of these products and not become intoxicated in virtually all cases. And I do think the point that Senator Hanger made earlier is a relevant one, that you can't provide for all risks, you can't provide for all instances, can't provide for somebody buying multiple packages and consuming them in one sitting if that's what they want to do. But importantly, we do have a public health crisis where kids in particular, wittingly, accidentally, being given them these products from their grandparents, are consuming them now and getting not just intoxicated, but extremely dangerously intoxicated. And that's responsible for an increased number of visits to emergency rooms. So it would guard against that. It's certainly the province, it's the prerogative of the General Assembly to decide whether we codify this or ask a regulatory agency to implement rules that would give what you do effect. I don't think it would be a year process if you were to ask us to regulate in this area. I believe, I haven't seen the amendments, but I believe if we were given a good sense of what is in the bill, we could have rules ready to go by July 1 of this year, particularly if we weren't burdened with APA obligations.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So the
Thank you very much.
amendment
That's-
could exempt you from the APA. Gentlemen, do you still have questions? Okay,
I
so
do, yes.
I think I called Servell and then
Yes,
Senator
ma'am.
Sproul. Well, let's wait, let's hold on motions.
I have a motion to amend.
You have a motion to amend. Let me
Yeah.
just take Senator Sproul and I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two questions.
Senator Sproul.
Yes, ma'am. One for the gentleman who at the desk now. Sir, were you at the last meeting that we had?
On Wednesday, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So I'm trying to figure out, Senator Hanger was concerned about the safety for kids, not those who want to smoke it. So if you were at the last meeting, so I'm trying to figure out, you were at the last meeting, and you heard everything that we were saying. So what can you do any different than laying this thing a whole year to give you all time to read out whatever you were trying to do? So if you were at the last meeting, you knew the problem. His problem was we want to make sure that we would make it safe for kids and not get high. So now, so you're suggesting we give it to y'all to do a study, and you said it may not take a whole year. You were at the last meeting, so why you need a whole year? You were at the last meeting, why you couldn't have a recommendation today to give us today to make us safe for what he is trying to do?
Well, sorry, Madam Chair, I mean, I'll.
Senator McPike.
There have been ongoing discussions since the subcommittee, I know with Madam Chair and other stakeholders, and
Yes.
I don't know that it's necessarily fair to put someone on the spot that hasn't seen the substitute.
Well, he shouldn't have said
that
it,
just
then
came
bring it
out
up.
either, so just in fairness to the speaker.
Being fair to
I
him
think-
also, Madam Chair, he shouldn't have said to send it to his committee or whatever to make a discussion on it. Because I am convinced at the last meeting that Senator Hanger was saying all he was trying to do is to make it safe for kids not to get high. That 2% you were talking about, well, that's negotiable.
Senator
Last-
Sproul,
Last time, Madam Chair, I'm concerned with as far as the amount. Take any substance abuse, those who drink wine or drink alcohol. Maybe safe for one. You can kill yourself if you drink 2/5, but 1/5 may not be enough for one person. So you can't go by the amount because you take a whole lot of anything, you can die from it. So you can't use that. Senator Hanger's trying to make this thing safe for kids. So I'm hoping that we stop playing around. Let's get this thing out of here.
I think any bill that we pass, we're going to ensure will be safe for kids. In fact, we put that language in the budget just last year. So let's move on. Senator Boysko, and then.
Thank you.
And then we're going to take a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask a clarifying question.
Sure.
So, pardon, I think everybody here wants to make sure that children are protected, that we have good labeling, child-proof. We do not want to have a child ending up in the hospital. But I think there is a question that has not been addressed here, the difference between Senator Hanger's bill and Senator Lewis's bill. My understanding is that Senator Hanger's preference is that we really slow down very drastically the commercial sale of these intoxicants and the products. And Senator Lewis's bill is looking for a very regulated, safe oversight. And I just want to, is that accurate between the two different bills? And I don't know if Senator Hanger is the right person to ask.
I think, this gentleman, if you're asking him the question, my read on it now, and as we discussed yesterday, and I think the proponents of Senator Lewis's bill, clearly, as it's introduced, not if it takes part of my bill and puts in it, as it was introduced, is opening up a market for vaping products and smoking products that will get you high. And they've been clear about that. You know, it will exceed the levels of that we have authorized. it's kind of a fill-in for, we haven't authorized, as Senator Edmond wants to go with recreational marijuana, but you can get the same high off of hemp if it's manufactured to do that.
I think at the end of the day, though, our issue is still whether we sort of mandate a limit, if you will, versus going
Right.
through the regulatory process.
Right, and not to overstate it, Madam Chair, but I would hope that we would, as a temporary fix, and then these, I'm impressed by this gentleman and what he has said and what they're doing. I've had some concern about it, but I'm actually impressed with what he has shared. But I think we've got a mechanism to move it to his authority.
We do.
In this bill.
In truth and disclosure here, there are some large producers and probably small producers that would say it would put them out of business until
That's right. We have to, because there's
until
some
we get
products
to the
to kids
regulation.
that are dangerous.
Okay, Senator Servo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, listen, first of all, Senator Hanger's done a tremendous amount of work on this and become quite an expert in something he's never going to consume, I'm sure. But
you know something funny? I read on the internet this morning that Emmett Hanger has a company in Grottoes called the Pot and Vaping LLC. And it's out on the internet floating around right now. I'm going to check on them when I get home. I'm going to be making money.
And Madam Chairman, I don't know if the senator is aware, but we all became TikTok famous because in our subcommittee hearing, I asked the senator whether or not you could smoke a carrot, and all the users on Twitter thought it was hilarious that I would talk about putting Delta 8 in a carrot, but it was actually a serious question. But in any event,
Madam Chairman, I hope that wasn't on the state device that TikTok occurred.
All right, colleagues.
But
we're having too many minor conversations.
that's fine.
Please, Senator Servo.
Well, but
get to
here's
your
what I'm
point.
getting at. So here's the problem, right? Is that Senator Hanger's bill puts the hemp people out of business. Senator Lewis's bill basically says that anything that's hemp derived can be sold and is okay. And the problem with that approach, I talked to a chemist after the last hearing we had who explained to me that the Lewis approach is basically like, and not the Lewis approach, but the approach reflected in the Lewis bill that he was asked to carry basically is the equivalent of basically like taking like a bottle of whiskey, taking the alcohol out, running it through a synthetic process, putting it back in, and then just saying it's not alcohol anymore. So you can sell it to anybody you want, consume however much you like.
But it's still intoxicating.
It's still intoxicating, it's not controlled anymore, et cetera, okay? And I only say that to say that this is an extraordinarily complicated, both legally, scientifically, whatever, chemistry-wise, whatever area. And we continue to dabble in it in small increments and in short hearings. And the big problem is that we need to have a licensed marijuana system, which has been a problem now for 100 years. And we tried to tee up that discussion 2 years ago, and we got close, but we found out when we got in it was complicated. We needed to spend more time to figure it out. Then we got a new governor who doesn't want to talk about it. And all of these problems are not going to get resolved until the governor steps up to the table, tells us, shows some leadership in all these problems, brings a group of us together to figure it out. And Senator Hanger, I think, would be an excellent person to have in that room. Senator McPike's put a lot of time and effort into that. And I'm sure there's some other people, but we have to have a conversation to figure it all out instead of doing this piecemeal. And my concern is as long as we keep doing this piecemeal, we're just going to keep playing whack-a-mole and deal with new problems. So, Madam Chairman, what my motion would be that we put an enactment clause on this that say the provisions of this bill should be effective upon the enactment of legislation authorizing a retail marijuana licensing system. So that whatever we do doesn't happen until we get marijuana done.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second.
Madam Chair, can you hear what the person say? I'd like to hear if he like it or not.
This is a voice vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Unless the chair cannot determine how the voice is coming down. Does anybody else want to speak to that motion?
Madam Chair, you still haven't given the patient time to say whether he like it or not. At least let him do that.
Well, absolutely not.
He doesn't.
And I hope, And I hope the majority of you all don't like that because we're going to delay.
I do not like it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Senator DeStef.
Madam Chair, I've read a lot of this. I'm listening to this. I don't sit in this cannabis subcommittee, but I don't think that we've adequately addressed in language what we're describing we're trying to do. The concern I have is like a bag of lifesavers. We're saying you can package one of those lifesavers and it's 2 milligrams. How many people have one lifesaver? I think that the issue we're trying to address here, I liked his bill last year that said you can't have any of this stuff look like candy. You can't have it
Right,
look
and
like cars. If you
And we
would've-
still have that.
That's in the
Understood,
budget.
it was in the budget, but it's still not being followed. It's still not being enforced.
Yes, it
And
is.
I think that every time we get a substitute dropped on us, and I'm sure we're going to have another one before we vote on the floor. And I'm sure when we get it in conference, we're going to have another version of this. I've not seen anything adequately address what the patrons are saying that the bills are doing. It's not being addressed in the language of the bills that we're reading. And that's my frustration with this. Now, I don't want to belabor a vote, and I'm just going to say that until we can get there, I'm just going to keep saying no, 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 because I read in what's in the law is what's written in our bills, not what the patrons say.
Well,
And I'm frustrated with this.
I understand your passion. This is a very emotionally ridden issue.
Madam
Senator
Chair, I would
Hanger,
only say the
why don't you
important
conclude?
feature of the bill is a registration process, and that we'll have to send this to finance and get more people out there, because what Senator DeStef is saying, it's actually in there, and we need an enforcement mechanism. And, you know, the 0.3% content, the 2 milligram is in there, and then VDACs will have the authority to go out and enforce it. Whether we do it as is in the bill now, or as some of you are suggesting, that we put it with the CCA to develop the regulation, we will do that.
Okay. There
Madam
was
Chair, one last question.
One last question. Go
How many
ahead,
law
Senator
enforcement-
DeStef.
Senator Hanger, how many sworn law enforcement officers does VDAX have?
These are inspectors, they're food inspectors. We have a budget amendment in. This is a big issue because they go into all these stores and for food safety, and they have the authorization to do that. And we're going to add about 15 positions is what we're proposing to do this.
Senator Hanger is a senior member of our Finance Committee. Okay. A motion has been made for an enactment clause that this not become law unless there's a retail market for marijuana. Is that correct, Senator Servell? Was that your motion? And there was a second. I'm going to ask all of those in favor of that amendment to the bill to signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. No. The chair's in doubt. So I think we're going to have to take a roll call vote on that.
Ayes 7, noes 8.
Okay, so the amendment fails. Okay, so far, Senator Hanger, you still have a clean bill. Senator McPike, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wrapping up, this is a lot of the same testimony that we had to deal with over an hour.
Yes, it was.
And it is a complicated issue. I would move the amendment that the regulatory framework regarding the 2 milligrams be put to CCA because of the measurement issues and the different questions that are still outstanding that we still continue for hours in committee, and would so move.
I would like to offer a minor change to your amendment that the Administrative Procedures Act that be accepted.
So amended.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank
May
you.
I have a second? Okay.
Madam Chair, clarification, is that speaking narrowly to what you just said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Colleagues, do you understand that amendment? There's a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed to that amendment? Okay, your bill is amended accordingly.
Madam
Now,
Chair, if I could just have
Senator McPike.
one follow-up with Parker Slayball, please. On the, as written through the enactment, this committee has debated for quite some time and want to make sure that we understand that the administration would be supportive of the transition of this over to CCA.
I have not, I don't have an answer. Our position right now would be no position. This is all happening right in front of us, so I'd have to take that back, and certainly happy to follow up with you.
Thank you. And just to speak.
I have a motion on the bill. Senator McPike.
I'll make a motion real quick on that, but just to speak to it, I think in our work in the subcommittee, I think there is the interest to get it over to CCA, both
Yep.
within the regulatory space to make sure the experts are dealing with this. We appreciate VDAC's work, but we know that this is a specialty, much like we have ABC, that really focuses on this issue. VDAC has a lot of other responsibilities. We want to get in the hands of the experts. And with the amendments, I so move.
That it be re-referred to
The bill
finance.
and be re-referred to finance.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Will the clerk open the roll, please?
Scott, what do you want to do?
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Senator Hanger, your bill moves to finance.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think you can manage it there.
Appreciate it.
All right, next up, Madam Chair, is Senator Lewis's Senate Bill 1393. And we
Welcome,
did,
Senator Lewis.
Morning, Madam Chair. We did take up considerable time, much like the Hanger bill. You see the committee had a split vote of 3-3, or 3 and 3 abstentions, pending the sort of the follow-up discussion, So,
Madam Chair, Senator McPike, it's a pleasure to be with you all this morning as I attempt to pull myself out of the rabbit hole of hemp and THC and Delta. I have renewed appreciation for what you all do in this committee and the magic of David May. So
He's magical.
we spent a lot of time post-subcommittee trying to address some of the subcommittee's concerns in this bill. 1393, Madam Chair, as it was originally introduced, dealt with obviously the regulation of hemp products in the wake of a 2018 Farm Bill, which essentially legalized these products nationwide. And as a result, many of the products in the market are mislabeled, misleading. Intellectual property standards were violated, not fully tested, not properly labeled. Virginia took some steps to regulate these products, and this bill strengthens those standards and adds additional safeguards while ensuring the hemp industry can continue to operate in a legal manner in line with federal law. There are several small businesses upon which which are based upon this product. So this bill attempted to establish a regulatory framework which would ensure that the market can continue to thrive in Virginia while addressing the existence of these bad actors, I think, which we all agree. So I think there's a substitute, is there not, David?
I was going to ask. Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of adopting the substitute signify by saying aye. Aye.
So,
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, what the substitute purports to do is take the recommendations that we derived from the give and take in the subcommittee to deal with child safety laws, or child safety, single-use packaging, increasing the penalties for underage sales. We addressed labeling and packaging concerns, which seemed to be the preference of the committee. And there were some additional technical amendments, i.e. there are no warning labels required on hemp products involving rope and clothing. And I think that's what we've done with the substitute, Madam Chair.
Senator Lewis or Senator McPike, I will hear from each of you. Can you maybe articulate the major distinction between your bill and Senator Hanger's bill? Because I'm hoping your substitute includes all the labeling and other safety measures.
It's supposed to, Madam Chair. And then I think Senator Hanger pretty much laid out for you what the distinction is, and it's not an insignificant one. But we did take the language which the subcommittee, I think, approved or seemed to approve from his bill regarding the packaging, labeling, safety issues.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Senator Hanger did indicate, as Senator Lewis just spoke to it, on inhalation. We know that there are products that are out there. We want to provide a framework that is in regulatory mindset, and I don't see the substitute quite loaded yet, so I can't speak to each of the segments, but maybe Mr. May can maybe clarify some of the updates since the subcommittee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
do you know when the substitute will be loaded, Mr. May? It's up now? Okay. Yes, could you please go through the substitute for the committee?
Madam Chair, Senator McPike. All right, so yeah, it pulls over from Senator Hanger's bill the labeling and packaging language. It's a little bit slightly different because of how the bill is set up, but it does pull that language over. It also sets civil penalties for underage sales, $5,000 for a first violation, $10,000 and a 7-day suspension for a second violation, and $25,000 permanent revocation for a third or subsequent. It also it makes a couple cleanup edits, like Senator Lewis mentioned, that we highlighted in the subcommittee, and I believe that's pretty much it.
Madam Chair,
Senator Morsi.
does this bill also marry the definition of industrial hemp with that definition that is set forth by federal law?
I think that's correct.
I didn't hear, my seatmate has given me a primer, and it's been helpful, but I didn't hear
I've
our staff
received
mention that.
a great primer over the last 48 hours myself.
So the answer is yes, it does. Is that right, everybody?
There is a registration piece to this bill, too.
Wait,
I don't want to get bogged down,
okay.
Madam Chair, but
David,
I'm hearing
we'll-
one yes and staff is saying no.
We'll ask general counsel.
Yeah.
Mr. May.
It seems like it.
Okay, Mr.
Madam
May's
Chair,
going to
is there a
answer.
specific line y'all want me to look at? 14 of the substitute? I don't see that in my version of the substitute. The only definitional changes in the substitute involve two definitions, the definition of industrial hemp and the definition of industrial hemp intended for inhalation. The relevant definition of what I believe Senator Morsi is referencing would be the definition of industrial hemp. There is an amendment made to that definition. I don't know that that's necessarily to bring it.
I'm told line 32.
Well, I think,
In line 36 through 38.
Madam Chair,
Mr. May?
yeah, line 14 is current law, first off. And as for the definition of industrial hemp, it's actually what the bill does, and this is not part of the substitute, this was in the original bill, is an expansion of what would constitute industrial hemp. It includes not only a part of the plant cannabis sativa and its seeds, whether growing or not, it would also include its extracts, salts, isomers, and derivatives. Happy to bring DFS back up, but as I understand that, it's much more broad as far as what would be considered industrial hemp. And you're looking at possibly synthetic cannabinoids and other things that might not necessarily fall under the definition of industrial hemp as it stands today.
But it does follow the federal definition that was in the 2018 Farm Bill. Is that correct, David?
Madam Chair, Senator Lewis, yeah,
Yes.
I don't know that we're necessarily deviating from that. I don't know that the Farm Bill includes the language about extract, salts, isomers, and derivatives, but as far as aligning with the THC content and everything, we are in a line, I believe, still with the Farm Bill.
Okay. Colleagues, do you have any other questions? Senator McPike?
Thank you. So the hesitation on the vote in the subcommittee was really about the resolution of the hangar issues, not necessarily the concepts of Senator Lewis's bill, Madam Chair. And I think that with the combination of the modifications we've just went through with Senator Hangers and the presentation of Senator Lewis's bill, I would move to report and re-refer.
Okay, yes, it
And
does have
re-refer
to
to
be
finance,
re-referred.
the substitute.
Hey, Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Hanger.
Just a question, I guess, regarding potential consistency. They have packaging requirements that were pulled out of my bill. Maybe that should go to the CCA as well.
I thought the substitute was supposed to do that, but David, do we have the transition from VDAX to CCA in this?
Madam Chair, there's no transition language in Senator Lewis's bill. If at the pleasure of the committee, we could put that in there.
I think we're fine with that. I think we indicated in subcommittee we were fine with that.
Okay, so may I have a motion for that transition? Okay,
Second.
second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, I'd amend my motion as, to move the substitute as amended, be reported and referred to finance.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, will the clerk please open the roll?
Ayes 9, noes 5.
Well, your report, it now reports in it.
Thank you,
moves
Madam
to
Chair.
finance. Thank you.
Committee.
Okay, so now we have Senator Evans' bill.
Madam Chairman, can you make sure Senator Rouse?
Oh,
Okay.
excuse me, did,
So, and-
Senator Ross, were you noted on the, very good, thank
So,
you.
Madam Chair,
Senator McPike?
the next was Senate Bill 1133 regarding the framework for legal retail sales. We had considerable and robust discussion around that. We took testimony for quite some time as well with different provisions, and I know that Senator Eben has worked through, I believe, a substitute to address some of the subcommittee's comments in relation to that rollout.
Yeah, ask
Do you
Mr.
have
May,
any-
is that a substitute or amendments? The four
Madam Chair, it
changes.
would be a substitute.
Okay, so
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
should I explain the changes, Madam Chair, or do you want Senator McPike to do that? I could do that.
I'm sorry, my internet just went out, so your bill went down.
Well,
They're all down.
may I explain the
You may
substantive changes to
explain.
substitute?
Yep.
Okay.
Go
First,
ahead.
and I just want to explain in general, this follows the same spirit and framework of the cannabis legislation that we've passed in the past. However, this is a 44-page bill now, about to become longer with the substitute. With the help of some students at UVA State and Local Policy Clinic and Mr. May, we're able to trim it down, but similar framework. The amendments are a direct response to concerns that were voiced in the Cannabis Subcommittee on Wednesday. First, we amended the definition of historically economically disadvantaged communities to more narrowly focus on communities we know have most been impacted by disparate enforcement and the war on drugs, to ensure these communities both receive investment from the profits of cannabis sales and are provided a distinct avenue to successfully participate in the industry. And I want to be clear that the reason these definitions have shifted from our existing equity definitions is because since we first introduced this bill 3 long years ago, the legal landscape has changed. Recent and pending legal developments also raise questions about the use of race-based categories in government programs. Supreme Court is set to hand down a decision later this year addressing affirmative action by universities, and it's widely expected that the court's majority will narrow the use of race in admissions, and the decision may open the door to more challenges. Across the country, social equity programs defined similar to previously language in our bill are either currently tied in litigation or have been struck down by courts. We do not want impacted communities to be barred from or hampered from their entrance to this market. So this definition, which is used throughout the Virginia Code, goes as far as is, we believe, constitutionally allowable to ensure impacted communities can build generational wealth and receive state investment through Community Reinvestment Fund. The Second Amendment adds Senator Lucas's SB 1523 resentencing and release language to the bill at the request of Senator Servell. This will ensure that those currently unjustly incarcerated for cannabis possession or distribution can receive a fair chance at freedom. The third amendment is technical, changing the definition of THC, and comes at the request of the Department of Forensic Sciences. The final amendment addresses concern voiced by Chairman McPike, and this is important. The amendment requires any early entrant to the market to franchise 5 qualified applicants who live in historically economically disadvantaged communities for 4 of the last 5 years to be able to enter the market on day 1 of sales. These franchisees would receive training, business support, and product from any pharmaceutical processor wishing to enter the transitional sales market. They would be able to start selling cannabis on January 1st, 2024. Up to 20 businesses from those communities most impacted by cannabis prohibition and disparate policing will be some of the first to enter the market under this amendment. So we believe this is an equitable, constitutional, thoughtful set of amendments that are directly responsive to the public concerns I heard, and I hope the committee will look favorable on the amendment in the nature of a substitute. That's the changes from the.
We did
bill
adopt the
as it is.
substitute. Colleagues, I guess we're back up. The technology people got us back online.
Madam Chair, I move the substitute.
Okay. Okay, I need a second. You're not online yet?
Well, they're getting online, Madam Chair. May I ask the patron a question?
Senator Morrissey, go ahead.
Thanks. Senator, can you just explain to me I don't know if Head Start in a race is the appropriate words, that the pharmaceutical industry gets? It seems from the bill that they start a year earlier, and I understand the component that you just described where these various entities will start on July 1, 2024. Can you just give me an understanding of the pharmaceuticals that start a year earlier?
Sure, 6 months earlier. They're prepared to start meeting the public demand and would help with these franchisees who would start on the same day as the pharmaceutical processors.
The franchisees start the same day as the pharmaceutical. I thought you just said that they would start, the franchisees, on July 1, 2024, and I thought the pharmaceutical folk would start on July 1, 2023.
No, January 1st, 2024, they'd be able to start selling, and then additional license on July 1st, 2024.
So franchisees, January 1.
Senator Morrissey.
Thank you. Pharmaceuticals.
January 1.
Okay.
Madam Chair. Well,
Senator McPike.
thank you, Madam Chair. While we're waiting for it to load, we did have considerable discussion around the question that Senator Morrissey had in subcommittee and the concerns of early access to market. I appreciate Senator Ebbins' efforts to modify that and do a direct connection. I think one of the limiting factors, it is solely a retail component. And I'm supportive. I think this is a step in the right direction. I'd love to see micro businesses also early out. You know, there's different mechanisms in terms of access to build micro vertically integrated and other opportunities. I still have somewhat of the same concern in terms of establishing market dominance very early in the process that will disadvantage others as they try to start up later in the market timing. So I appreciate those amendments. We did have considerable discussion and some justified criticism of the early access provisions. I'm hoping that this continues to modify and we figure out ways to have Virginia-owned businesses have entry at the relative same time, as well as the equity. The other context, I think, Madam Chair, that was confusing to some of those who are approaching and providing comment is that Senator Ebbins' bill is the pieces that we did not reenact, and we already have pieces in the code that are already standing regarding the equity board and other provisions. So when you take those two together, you still see that there are some other opportunities for investment. We know that early access to capital is still going to be one of the critical things in this market, and there's still existing things within our code and in our budget to address some parts of that. That still needs to be worked out in detail as this vehicle goes through the General Assembly. So thank you, Madam Chair.
So it looks like there's still work to do. Colleagues, are you able to see the substitute? I've got the main document, and I understand you did explain the substitute changes, but it's always easier to see them in writing.
Madam Chair.
Senator Sproul.
Thank you. Senator Evans, at the subcommittee, I was concerned about this bill favors the big businesses. I was trying to look at the substitute that the small businesses that, have you made a provision that also, the small business also.
Senator Sproul, put your mic on. We can't hear you down at this end.
I apologize, Madam Chair.
Certainly.
There was some concern that this bill favored the big business. It was kind of put the small business out of business, that they would not have a fair chance for the market. Would you please address that?
Sure. Well, Unquestionably, there are businesses already involved in the medical cannabis space in Virginia who are prepared to start supplying the demand on day one. Those are larger businesses. However, they are limited in how many retail locations they can have and how much canopy space under this bill. This is a substantially large demand for it, larger than just the cannabis businesses would be supplying. But the key is, in response to that concern, the each of those pharmaceutical providers would in exchange for early entrance to market, would pay a substantial fee and franchise 5 qualified applicants who live in historically economically disadvantaged communities. They would start that before selling, and then they would, those people who they franchise, the small businesses, would be able to enter on day one along with the pharmaceutical businesses.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Boysko?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Eben, one, I appreciate you incorporating the social equity piece and incorporating Senator Lucas's language around the legal aspects of it. Is there, and we haven't talked about any sort of a safety or concerns around children access in this? Can you address what, you just heard the lengthy discussion around the hemp. I think that there are many of us who don't want children to be.
Absolutely. Well,
thank you.
One of the people would lose their license if they sell to people under 21. There's packaging requirements, and there's authority for the Cannabis Control Authority to do things regulatory, and I would think they would try and mirror what we do in other packaging in terms of safety.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Rouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Eben, I just have a quick question. I'm always typically, as a Hokie, always cautious when the UVA students come up with something, so I always got to give extra
They're
scrutiny.
here today. They're in the room.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of Wahoos in here today. So, but I'm just curious from a local aspect, and pigging off the back of Senator's rule, the bigger companies already have somewhat of an advantage to go into processing earlier. From a local level, I'm sure there are going to be limitations on how many retailers are operating within a certain locality. Does this address that piece?
It gives pretty broad authority to the Cannabis Control Authority to see that there are not too many retailers and that there are an adequate number to supply demand.
Mm-hmm.
We originally, in the original bill, had put a hard cap on the number of retailers and a number of other licensees, which I think was a mistake, so we left it in the hand of the Cannabis Control Authority to use their expertise.
Okay. My concern is centered around, the larger pharmaceuticals who can necessarily have their cherry pick who their retailers would be, but localities are not necessarily going to allow, a retailer shop on every single corner. So I'm just
We don't want that, and the key to that is not too many licenses, not too many retail licenses, and to see where they apply to be located. The goal is that they're both able to meet demand but not have an over proliferation.
Right,
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Evans.
Colleagues, we do have a motion before us. There was a motion made to report the substitute and re-refer it to finance. And I think we can do that. By the time it gets to finance, the technology should be working.
Madam Chair, so moved.
I think there was okay. Colleagues, I'm going to ask you to vote on the board. Will the clerk please open the roll? So sorry, I hit it.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Hey, Senator
Thank you,
Evans.
members of the committee.
Thank you. We have one more cannabis-related bill, and it is Senator Deed's bill. So 1533, and it should be quick and easy.
I think
to-
1533 is a simple bill.
I do too.
It simply allows a pharmaceutical processor that's obtained a permit to operate a pharmaceutical processing facility from the Board of Pharmacy to establish one additional grow place or a place for the cultivation of cannabis plants that must be located in the same health service area. This is about Dharma Pharmaceuticals. It was acquired by Green Thumb. That was the first medical cannabis dispensary in Virginia, and they're one of 4 licensed companies in the Commonwealth. Right now, they're located at Abington. They want to grow, establish a place to grow, to cultivate cannabis in Allegheny County and create 50 jobs, and that's what this bill's about. This will allow them to do it.
Okay.
I was advised this morning there's some opposition to the bill. I think from a competitor. But if
Do you have
wanna-
any speakers here?
There may be some speakers
If
here.
so, I would ask that you just come forward and say yay or nay.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jack Page. I'm a native Virginian and proud to say that I'm one of the founders of Dharma Pharmaceuticals, and we support the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Nigas Bevy, Vice President of Public Policy at Columbia Care. We support this bill as well. When cultivation sites were selected, it was based off of a very different program, and many of us are land-bound. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair. Jan Padini on behalf of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. In the interest of patients who require access to products in a timely manner, we support the bill.
Thank you.
Mike Troxel, I'm on the advisory board for Virginia Hemp Coalition. I'm just happy we get to talk about one of these bills today.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Alexander McCauley on behalf of JUSHI, which is the Northern Virginia Medical Cannabis Licensee. We're not a competitor of Dharma's, but we are a peer company. And our opposition is simply based on the fact that we think there should be some linkage between the number of patients in a health service area and the increase of cultivation facilities, because you will just get into endless political debates about how many licenses you get, how much cultivation you're entitled to, and we really think that those decisions should be made based on data, and we don't have the data, I think, to support this expansion of cultivation facilities.
Thank you. Is there anybody on Zoom who wishes to speak either in favor or in opposition to this bill?
Madam Chair, we have speakers on Zoom.
Please just indicate your concurrence, yes or no.
Richard Walker, you may provide your testimony.
Yes, Madam Chair, I say no to this because it's adding to the bigger picture of giving an advantage to more pharmaceuticals that can move into the dispensary and growth of the big picture.
Thank you.
Paul McLean, you may provide your testimony.
Good morning. I favor this, or our organization favors this only with the continued inclusion of the communities in the BIPOC community. Equity should be included in all licensing, even at the medical level, because when I originally talked about this 3 years ago, it was not factored in back then.
Thank you, sir.
Mark McCoy, you may provide your testimony.
Okay, colleagues.
Mark McCoy, you may provide your testimony. We have one more speaker, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
if he could get into the Zoom.
Mark McCoy, you may provide your testimony.
Okay, we're going to just proceed then.
I vote no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for following my instructions. The debate is now with the committee. Senator Rouse.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Senator Deeds, I'm curious, pharmaceuticals now can cultivate and have a cultivation site, correct?
Well, they can have one cultivation site that's at the licensed address. And what this group wants to do, they've got a facility in Abington. They want to establish a facility in Allegheny County.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Rouse.
Another question. So if pharmaceuticals already have a license and they can go to market sooner, and then you don't allow them an extra, this will allow them an extra site to process more cultivation of marijuana, how is that fair or equitable to the small businesses, people who want to get into this business but already starting behind the starting line?
You're assuming you're going to establish a market for something broader than pharmaceuticals. Right now, it's just pharmaceutical marijuana, pharmaceutical cannabis. And they have determined they can't grow much more where they are, and they just want more space.
But Madam Chair,
Senator Rouse?
Senator Deeds, but there is a large assumption marijuana is here. There's going to be a retail market. If we let pharmaceuticals get so far ahead, how we're going to make sure there's equity built when the other market comes around about?
I hear what you're saying. I just know this is a economically distressed area of Southwest Virginia, and it'll create jobs there. And so that's what I'm trying. I'm trying to grow some jobs in the area that I represent.
Sure, Madam Chair.
Senator Rouse?
Thank you, Senator Deeds. I think I'm all for growing jobs, but also making sure that we don't let the industry get so far ahead that that so far others can't catch up and have a fair playground, so to speak, to adequately be in the market.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I think there's plenty of growing stuff out there right now, and nobody's going to get ahead of anybody else, really. But I hear what you're saying.
Colleagues may have a motion. Okay, motion has been made to report and seconded. It was seconded. It must be re-referred to finance. Okay, motion to report and re-refer to finance. Clerk, please open the roll.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Peake, you've been waiting patiently. My apologies. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, absolutely, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much. Very interesting discusussions.
Well, that's the right thing to say anyways.
Absolutely.
I just have to compliment his choice of tie today.
Excellent, Senator McPeak. You look wonderful, Senator Pike, today. You can call me Pike. Madam Chair, members of this committee, Senate Bill 966, y'all have heard this. I think I've brought it 6 of my 7 years, the jail bill. If you have a jail in your locality, your jail is holding prisoners for the state. So after their time is up, they've been sentenced to more than a year, they hold a prisoner. The state reimburses. It had been $12. Last year, we finally got a bump and got $3. And then inflation ate it all up. So your jail is holding prisoners for the state. They're getting reimbursed $15, and the true cost is $107. So traditionally what has happened is everybody in this committee loves this bill because they've got jails. They're not getting reimbursed. We send it to finance where they promptly kill it. So I would ask that we pass this bill. Although we do have a surplus, they did give us money last year. We might be able to continue to bump it up a little bit.
It definitely needs to be bumped up. Senator Hanger.
Based on the senator's remark there, he did send it to finance, and because it was there, we did kill the bill, but we added a couple dollars to the per diem.
Yes.
So you made some progress.
I think y'all got 2 to 3 last year. So we're working on it. So if we can, I answer any questions, but I think y'all pretty much been in favor and we send it to finance.
Okay, may I have a motion to that
Move to
effect?
report and re-refer to finance.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Would the
Thank
clerk
you,
please-
members of
Clerk, please
the
open the roll. Okay.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Okay, very good. Who else is in the audience? Okay, there's Senator, okay, Senator Lucas. Is this Senate Bill
Madam Chair.
1214?
Yes, ma'am, it's 1214. I was trying not to step into my hot chocolate. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I think there's an amendment. Attorney Hazel.
Yeah, it's different.
Move the amendment.
There's an amendment. Motion was made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Madam Chair, I'd like to start by telling you what the problem is. In 2021, Virginia became the first state in the South to end the prohibition of simple possession and adult consumption in private areas, as well as home cultivation, with proper labeling and storage. However, this did not stop marijuana from being used as a weapon to separate families. Virginia neglected this household component of decriminalization to better free up our courts and families from outdated, and that's going to be support policies. Madam Chair and members of the committee, what the bill does is provides that a child shall not be considered an abused or neglected child, and no person shall be denied custody or visitation of a child based solely on the fact that the child's parent or other person responsible for its care, or the person petitioning for custody or visitation of the child, possessed or consumed marijuana in accordance with applicable law. The bill directs the Board of Social Services to amend its regulations, guidance documents, and other instructional materials to ensure that such regulations, documents, and material comply with, and that investigation and family assessments are conducted by local departments of social services in accordance with the provisions of this bill.
This has to do with Child Protective Services.
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Yeah, and it's a very straightforward bill, and essentially, if marijuana shall not be considered a criteria, if you will, on an abused or the solo reason.
Correct, to separate families.
On an abuse or neglect allegation. Okay, do you have any speakers, Senator Lucas?
I think I do.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Senator McDougal.
just maybe this is a question for Senator Lucas or Mr. May. I'm just trying to read through this. So right now, alcohol is not a bar in general, but if you have too much alcohol and it causes you not to be able to care for your children properly, would this, my question is, risk of physical or mental injury to the child, does that cover all the potential situations that we would see? So I don't think we have that for alcohol.
Is there too much marijuana and it could harm the child? Is that what your point?
Madam Chairman, I think if you have, some people have too much alcohol and then they're not getting the child to school, they're not making sure that they're fed properly. Those are certainly situations, unfortunately, that do occur. We don't necessarily say alcohol is the reason, but it's one of the factors that lead to it. So I don't want us to create a situation where we're saying that if the underlying condition is because you're doing too much of a substance, then that can't be considered because of the best interest of the child. I understand what Senator Lucas is trying to do is say that just because you use or possess
Let me ask
marijuana, that's not a bar, but I want to make sure we're not losing the best interest of the child.
Let me ask David May.
Madam Chair, Senator McDougal. So I don't know if I fully grasp the question. I guess my response would be we do not have the same provision for alcohol. That's correct. This specifically is calling out marijuana by its reference to 4.1-11 or Chapter 11 of Subtitle 2 of 4.1. And the language about creating a risk of physical or mental injury kind of just tracks the language that's set forth previously in that subdivision. This is the first prong of abused or neglected child in that definition. It's kind of like the most broad, general catch-all provision. It gets a little bit more specific as it goes down after that. So, I think that was just the intent of the bill, and this was the best subdivision in that definition where we could slide it in.
Madam Chair.
Senator Morrissey.
Senator Lucas, my question is similar to Senator McDougal. Your bill says essentially if the only reason that the child should be determined neglected or abused is marijuana, then that cannot be a sufficient reason. Senator McDougal's question, and I actually share it, is what about that situation where there's only one provider, the mother, she is smoking marijuana continuously. You can tell when you go in the house, always high. That, I think, is this question. Is there a point where we say, wait a second, this child is in danger because mom is continuously high and perhaps cannot give the child the aid and succor and nurturing required?
Madam Chair, Senator Marcy, the bill does provide that the Board of Social Services amend its regulations and guidance because, as you said, if a person, overly consumes, of course, that child will be neglected. But this bill requires that the Department of Social Services monitor anybody who overconsumes so that would leave that child so they would be neglected. So there is a provision where social services has to step in.
That's right.
Madam Chair, can you direct me just to that portion of 1214?
Mr. May?
Of the line?
Mr. May, go ahead.
Madam Chair, Senator Morrissey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she's referring to the language on lines 25 to 26, which clarifies that you can't find that a child is abused or neglected just because the parent is engaging in activities that are allowed relating to marijuana. But you're still going to have that standard that if it's creating a risk of physical or mental injury to the child because it's being abused, it's used habitually, it's creating an unsafe environment for the child, that is still going to be considered an abused or neglected child.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I have some of my...
Yes, I'm going to take 3 minutes of comment.
Thank you.
3 minutes. If the first speaker takes all this time, then 3 minutes.
Thank you,
in
Madam
favor.
Chair, members of the committee. Valerie LaRue from Virginia Poverty Law Center, and we very much support this bill. We believe that the regulations and the lines between 24 and 26 will address the problem that Senator McDougal raised. Thank you.
I would agree.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Allison Gilbreth with Voices for Virginia's Children. I align my comments with Valerie with Virginia Poverty Law Center, and I'll also add that we hear from several localities across Virginia who hear the trauma from children when they go to have a visitation and they are denied solely because of marijuana. And being in foster care is traumatizing already. Going to see your parent and then being denied creates a trauma that we see from so many children across Virginia. So we strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If all of you are in favor, you can just say, I'm in favor.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Yes, Ashley Moore from Legal Aid Justice Center, and we are in favor for the reasons previously stated.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Morgan. I'm here on behalf of Marijuana Justice. We want to thank the Senator for carrying this bill for us, and we are also in support. I did want to briefly speak on this, though. This is simply a housekeeping component of previously passed legislation to help us free up our courts and ensure protection for Virginia families of outdated policies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Melanie Bowers. I'm Vice President of Civitas Health Services, as well as I'm on the Criminal Justice Committee of the Hanover County branch of the NAACP. And I just want to say that without the language in this bill, we are possibly subjecting parents who are not violating the law to biases of judges and court-appointed officials, while contributing to an increase in trauma of children and the number of unnecessarily broken homes and families within our Commonwealth.
Thank you.
Thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
Sir?
Morning, Madam Chair. Nicholas Rocha, Veterans Affairs Committee for Virginia Hemp Coalition, and we're in support of Senator Lucas's bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse Frierson with the Virginia Alliance Against Mass Incarceration, as well as the Cannabis Equity Coalition of Virginia, and we support the bill.
Thank you. Is there anybody here in opposition to the bill? Seeing none, is there anybody on Zoom who wishes to speak?
We have speakers on Zoom, Madam Chair.
I would say that you just indicate whether you're in favor or in opposition to the bill.
Chelsea Wise, you may speak on the bill.
Hi, I'm with Marijuana Justice. We are in favor of the bill. I want to speak to the amendment that no one has spoken about that directs the courts to also say that the clean drug screen would also have an exception. And that was some important part, as well as normal came and included the medical card as just having a medical card would also be an exception, not the testing. So wanted to say that, and thank you, Senator Lucas, for this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tayi Mallory, you may provide your testimony.
Tayi Mallory with Virginia NAACP, and we support the bill.
Will Estrada, you may provide your testimony.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Will Estrada. I'm the president of parentalrights.org and the Parental Rights Foundation. We strongly support this bill. We thank Senator Lucas for bringing it up. We've seen firsthand the trauma that innocent families and children have when faced with unnecessary CPS investigations, and we believe that this bill will protect them.
Thank you.
Nicole Martin, you may provide your testimony. Nicole Martin, you may provide your testimony.
Yes, good morning. This is Nicole Martin, president of the Chesterfield County NAACP, and we do support this amendment. Thank you.
Kalia Harris, you may provide your testimony.
Hey there, my name is Kalia Harris, and I support this bill.
Thank you. Does that conclude our speakers?
We have no more speakers, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move that we move.
Madam Chairman.
Motion to move the bill forward has amended.
Madam Chairman, a substitute motion.
Senator Servo.
I would move to report and re-refer this bill to the judiciary. It does amend the visitation statute, which affects every divorced custody visitation case.
It came from judiciary.
We heard it?
Yes,
It was
we did.
re-referred from judiciary.
We already did.
That's crazy.
This is, the bulk of this bill
Yes.
lies within the scope of this committee.
We didn't hear it in judiciary, though. Okay, fine.
I would like a motion
Fine,
to
I'll
move this
talk to my
forward.
judiciary colleagues, but
Madam
I wasn't
Chair.
there when that happened.
Madam Chair, I restate, I move we pass the bill and move it
Report the bill,
forward.
and I need a second. Okay, Senator Hanger asked me to recognize Mr. Ayers. Do you have anything to add to the conversation?
Would you please?
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair. Senator Hanger, and just on behalf of the Department of Social Services, I'm Carl Ayers, Deputy Commissioner. Just wanted to make sure you had a lot of procedural questions about what does this actually mean and how does it play out.
I think we got to those.
I think you got those
We
from
got
that
the
end of
answers.
it, and you got the, you heard the speaker speak to the drug testing
We
piece
did.
of it, which is
We
a pretty significant change. I just wanted to make sure that the administration, that the committee understood those changes, and then we still deal with it on a case-by-case basis, so we will handle that in that manner.
Thank you.
Just want to clarify that for you.
But thank you, and thank you, Senator Hanger.
Madam Chairman.
Will the clerk please open the roll? Senator McDougal.
Just speaking to the motion, those parts, I think that you have pretty uniform agreement. The other language, which limits it to just those mental and physical risk, are not enough under child custody. It is a totally different standard, and it is a big change. And if we can fix that, then I think a lot of us would have a greater comfort. But that is going to make some significant negative changes to the determination of custody. I think what Senator Lucas's goal of the bill is to say, if you use marijuana, that should not be a bar in and of itself. And that's one of the things that with the law change, I think you can get some agreement. But what this says is much, much more, that it doesn't matter how much, what ramifications it is, that can't be considered unless there's some physical injury to the child. And there is more than just physical injury that goes into a custody determination in best interest of the child. So it's that language that I don't think is fixed in the bill.
Well, we can entertain floor amendments.
And when we get it fixed, then I'll be willing to vote for it, but it's
Okay.
not fixed now.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Mason.
so could Mr. Ayers come back to the stand real quick? Mr. Ayers, do you agree with what, I mean, everybody agrees with what we're trying to get at. But do you agree with what Senator McDougal just suggested?
Yes, Madam Chair, Senator Mason, Senator McDougal is correct. This is, whenever we deal with legal drugs all the time inside of Child Protective Services. Marijuana is now a legal drug, and you're treating it differently than we do any other drug. How we have to look at this is whenever a complaint comes in, is we have to look at the impact on the child. The fact that you're using any drug looks at your capacity to care for that child. And so as you're looking at this, we still have to deal with it on an individual basis and the capacity of that individual caregiver to care for that child. So that was why I wanted to make sure everyone understands that's how this works and it's how the system functions.
Madam Chair, I think Mr. May has a fix.
I'm going to take one more comment on this, Senator Morrissey, and then Senator Lucas, you can decide to come back to the committee next week if you want to take it by for the day, or I can take a vote and maybe we can get some amendments. But I do have a motion, yes. It would be whether or not I ask him to withdraw it. Senator Morrissey.
Madam Chair, If we don't make constructive amendments either in judiciary, we will end up on the floor trying to patch and cobble this together. Irrespective of whatever reason it went from judiciary to here, it wasn't addressed and fixed. So I would ask Senators McDougal and Surville, thank you. Do you think we can fix this in judiciary and then send it out, as opposed to?
We can go by for the day and have it come back next week, but I'd have to ask those who made the motion to withdraw.
Madam Chair, I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
The seconder, withdraw.
I just have a question.
Senator Rouse.
Here is longer, but I'm fairly new here. I'm just trying to understand, if it made it out of judiciary.
No, it didn't.
It didn't make
not.
it out.
It was re-referred to us. Judiciary never heard it.
Okay, thank you for the
But
clarification.
I do
Madam Chair.
believe that we can fix it here if you wish to take it, have us take
I
it
would
by.
prefer, since it was referred from judiciary to this committee, that we fix it here.
We are
And
going
that we
to-
get an affirmative vote.
Okay, we will fix it here. Would you like to pass it by for the day and come back next week?
Contingent on you fixing it, yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Lucas. All right.
Madam
We have
Chairman.
Senator Surville and we have Senator McDougal working on this.
Madam
And-
Chairman, I would like to point out my daughter Reagan is here, and she heard somebody say I was right. It's for a second time this year, so we're going to get this video. I know Senator
Okay.
Mason said it the first time.
Okay.
She wasn't listening then.
This committee likes to get things right. Okay, where's Senator McPike? Senator McClellan, I apologize.
Because I know you haven't talked about cannabis and marijuana enough. I have a bill that would establish the framework for the creation of the Virginia Cannabis Incubator Project, and establish the regulatory framework for that. The idea behind the cannabis incubator concept is to support disadvantaged, undercapitalized farmers, such as small, rural, or minority farmers, and entrepreneurs in crafting a boutique statewide cannabis market by providing services such as business planning, finance, marketing, sales, training on how to training on grow house production, security, product safety, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea here basically is to use the incubator concept to help those disadvantaged communities and farmers and entrepreneurs to be able to participate in the market. It does have a delayed enactment that it will not take effect until such time as there is a legal regulated retail market.
I am the chief co-patron on your bill, so I really like it. Do you have speakers? I will just ask that those in favor just stand up, and those in opposition, in favor, just give me a thumbs up. In favor, okay. Anybody in opposition to this bill? Seeing none. Anybody on Zoom wishing to speak to this bill?
Anyone on Zoom who would like to speak on the bill, you may raise your hand. We do not have any speakers, Madam Chair.
Okay, I would like a motion. Has to be re-referred to finance. Okay. Clerk, please open the roll.
Ayes 9, noes 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was worth the wait.
And it's re-referred to finance. Thank you. Senator McPike. And Senator McPike, yours is very straightforward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 1140, you've seen before. This is a recommendation at JLARC in terms of including training provisions for guardian ad litem. As you probably recall, we have 11,000 private guardian ad litem and conservatorships in Virginia. So there are the vast majority of those that are providing the necessary care to those that need a large amount of support. And so one of the recommendations was that there be standardized training. Now, there are a couple tweaks, and David, I don't think we have a substitute on 2 amendments? Okay.
Move the amendments.
And if council can touch on the amendments. Yes, please.
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded to adopt the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. May, would you please read them to us?
Madam Chair, 2 line amendments. The first is on line 127, after passed, strike 12, insert 36. Second line amendments on line 213, or after line 213, insert fourth enactment clause that would read that the office of the Executive Secretary of the Supreme Court of Virginia shall prepare the annual report form specified by 64.2-2020 of the Code of Virginia as amended by this act by July 1st, 2024. I believe that was a request of the Supreme Court to align the effective dates of when that would be due.
Okay, those have been adopted.
So,
Senator McPike?
If we could actually just do the second amendment only and not the first. And I apologize, and I'm going to speak to it just briefly.
So you want us to withdraw?
Withdraw the adoption of the amendments.
Okay.
And my apologies.
No problem. Colleagues may have a motion to withdraw adoption of the First Amendment. All those in favor of withdrawing that First Amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, only the Second Amendment now.
Correct, and I move the adoption of the Second Amendment.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I think that was before us anyways, but go ahead.
And thank you. And Madam Chair, there's still a couple tweaks that we're going to work with the elder law attorneys on this. I think there's a provision that we're going to need to exclude current attorneys that do GAL work because they already have training. They have CEs that are required as a part of that work. And so if I could include that in concept, if permissible, to move this along, I would ask council to work on that amendment as well as we move this out to the floor, if that'd be okay.
So we have to adopt that in concept.
Correct.
A motion to adopt as was just explained in concept. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, Senator McPike, we should have it in good shape now, right?
Yeah, and also going back to the First Amendment that we discussed, I would like to actually go and strike on lines 122 to 23, after completed, strike within the past 12 months. So it would just read, unless such training was completed in conjunction with another guardianship, and then strike lines 23, starting with no, and the remainder of line 124. So what it does would actually delete simply the frequency of training to avoid conflicts in the language where you would have one guardianship, one training requirement, and then another 3-year. I think it's much cleaner and simpler to delete it and simply have a simplified training requirement.
May I have
period.
a motion to that effect? Second. And there's a second. Senator Boysko. All those in favor of adopting that motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Madam Chair, I appreciate the committee's patience with those tweaks, but there was some last-minute comments that I did want to address and acknowledge with the elder law attorneys and others that we've been working through. So.
I am just going to ask anybody, for those in the audience who are in favor of this bill, just signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody in opposition in the audience? Seeing none? Okay, this bill will be, actually, it does not have to go to finance. I had it removed here, so Delegate May, I've got a conflicting annotation.
Initial bill was going to cost $1 million a year.
Reject. They initially asked and then they did not.
They didn't.
Okay.
Fiscal impact been removed?
Fiscal's been removed.
It does have a fiscal impact of 1 FTE from DARS. Not that I want to go to finance, but
It should go there.
Why don't, okay.
It probably should.
Motion to re-refer to finance. Is there a second? Second. All right, will the clerk open the roll? Okay, so.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15-0. Senator Morrissey, you have the last bill. So go ahead. And that'll be the last bill on our docket for today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, there is a study substitute, and I would move that study substitute.
Okay, colleagues, we want to adopt the substitute. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, your substitute's adopted.
The bill is much more simple now. All this bill does now is that the Department of Housing and Community Development, in coordination with the Department of Social Services, will convene a work group study. There's a lot of various stakeholders involved, and after talking to all the various parties, it appears that perhaps a work group study is the best way to approach this, and I appreciate all the stakeholders coming together and agreeing that we should study this.
I think this is a wise approach. Do you have any speakers?
There is one speaker on Zoom,
Okay,
Councilwoman Tresca Wilson-Smith from,
Okay, all right.
just one.
Oh, just one? Okay, will the clerk please open the Zoom?
Those on Zoom who would like to speak on the bill, you may raise your hand.
And please keep it to about 30 seconds, yes or no, in favor of the study.
She's the only speaker.
Tresca Wilson-Smith, you may provide your testimony.
One more time, allow her.
Tresca Wilson-Smith, you may provide your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that she had a situation with her husband going to the hospital,
Okay,
so
all right.
maybe she's gone.
Please close the Zoom room. Ms. LaRue, did you want to speak in favor? Okay, are you in favor? Okay.
It's a work
Ms.
study.
LaRue, please come forward from the Virginia Poverty Law Center.
Madam Chair, our problem with this bill is that there is no housing assistance in Virginia right now. And so to create a situation where DSS has to do something that doesn't exist, such as to provide them information about assistance that isn't available, but also to put families in a situation where they're being reported to DSS. So if there's been an amendment, I'm sorry, I was out of the room.
It's a Section 1 bill now.
It's a work
and it's
A work study bill, okay.
Thank you. The bill is dramatically.
All right, I'm sorry, I didn't see that, so I was out of the room, so I'm very sorry.
You might be okay with the Section 1. Okay, colleagues.
Move to report.
Second. Clerk, please open the roll. I don't have a fiscal impact, so, okay, very good. Oh, it does have to go to finance. But I don't think it will now. It's a Section 1. Let's move it forward. Motion to report. And second, clerk, please open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Okay, Mr. May, is there anything else to come before this committee today?
That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you, colleagues.